All right.
Thank you, Satas.
Thank you. Excellent. All right. So, we're constantly evolving, looking to find ways to support those of you who are joining us in this process. So, we're creating this to a certain extent as we go. For me, of course, it's always new. I know there are quite a few of you, this is like your fourth or fifth silent retreat of one form or another.
Or 10th.
Or 10th, yeah. But it is the most, I would say, the most focused and directive program I do. I discovered this principle, I call the SOT, in 2007, and it shattered my whole system. And that was 9 years after I had already awakened. So it was a place that occurred after also 3.5 years of samadhi states that would overtake me sometimes for days. So it was a breaking through into I can't even say it was a perception, but a recognition of a fundamental principle. And from that moment on, everything has been clear to me. And that there is a fundamental possibility that I sensed at that time, but I didn't know what that was until I started interacting with other people, and this force would come through my body.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't abstract. It was very, very real. For me, it's very, very real. I've lived with it ever since. So I know the nature of its power. Because it comes from the origin, it comes from that from which creation came into existence. It brings a primal activating capacity that is extremely powerful for those of us who have bodies, because it goes into the very fabric of the core of each cell and starts awakening the consciousness of that cell. You could say all the cells of our body are in a state of contraction due to the event of coming into existence as a body, the need to survive, the need to be something other than the vastness of consciousness. And that existential stress contracts the cells. And this is what allows matter to stay cohesive. It's what allows our body to stay together, is this contraction. But in the same time, it's given us stability in our bodies. It's also a blockage to these greater, higher energy vibrations. So even on the normal spiritual path, it takes a long time, decades, for the body actually to be able to hold the spiritual experiences, the spiritual qualities of consciousness that come. This force accelerates that process. So it's likely to set in motion whatever may be the next shift in your own journey, in your own return journey, I like to say. We're all in a journey of consciousness. We've forgotten that ultimate reality of ourself and live in this kind of temporary space-time conditioned state of consciousness where reality seems to be only what our mind thinks or what our eyes sees or ears hear. In fact, this quality of reality is actually the truth of us. So coming out of this is a process that has to, in order to fulfill itself, has to be able to have time to integrate, to become part of our human life. You could say it's the spirit that's in matter getting to know itself as spirit. So it's matter getting to know itself. Spirit getting to know itself as matter, and matter getting to know itself as spirit. This is actually the opportunity of this work. So it's inevitable that transformation is going to it will be happening, but you may not be able to know it or recognize it because it may feel like a bad mood. It may feel like awful. It may feel wonderful, but that'll only last for a period of time. Then you'll have to go through the awful, then the wonderful, then the awful, then nothing at all. And then the wonderful, then the awful. And that is how it goes. And that's how you bet on it. If you're committed to this path, that's the rest of your life. The only difference is these wonderfuls and awfuls start flattening out as time goes on. And that's when you are the reality, manifesting through all the variabilities of the creation. So becoming capable of holding this as a lived reality. Remember, reality. That means it is as real to you as your hand. It's real to you as the physical chair you're sitting in. It is as that quality of what you are becomes equal to yourself of the reality you have known before. It doesn't dismiss the reality you were before. It's still there, but it doesn't have its convincing grip on your mind, in your vital, or in your body. And so there is this recognition that you are the occupying consciousness of the person of you. And that clarity, that clarification, that beginning to see the distinction allows us to choose to come back together. Hang on. Spam calls. Welcome to the reality, right? It's random. It's like the chickens we have outside. It's like these little automatic biological machines jumping this way and that way. It's such why you got 6 chickens. And it was really interesting. I was in meditation. I was coming out of samadhi today, and I was connecting to the chickens. Because that's my thing. I connect to anything that comes to my attention. And it was just like experiencing what it is to be a chicken. Playing with, and it was complete delight. It was all delight. It was not what we think. It is simply, they're new, they're coming into existence, they don't know jack shit. And they're, they shit in the very thing they drink water out of. I mean, it's just like a mess. But they're alive and they're bouncing and moving. It's pointing to the very nature of how this pervades everything. It is everywhere. It is this coming into existence. Being able to recover that immediacy for us, programmed, conditioned, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of being a human being, it's a great discovery. It's a recovery. It's a discovery and a recovery of the value of being in existence to know you exist. So no matter what the process that's going on for you, it's in a purposeful stream. It's heading towards bringing you back to that capacity to live in the immediacy of what you are in truth, in existence, recognizing and experiencing and enjoying its reality. Okay, that's our undertaking. And if you know it or not, this is what you've been living for all your life. You're just drinking, poor whiskey. You're not finding the real nectar, but you find approximations or reflections of the nectar, which in fact, we are the ones who create that. And we're the ones that have to let go of those old little reflections of truth in order to discover the greater truths of what it is that we are. So it is a discovery, but it is also a process. And transformation means a process, coming at different ways, depending upon how ready and open our system is, which will bring first forward that which is still contracted, that which is still unconscious, that which needs to come now to the surface to be met. That then being met, released, and then a recovery into that quality of being that's a higher level than it was before the darkness rose up. So it's a constant movement that takes us into more and more integrated states of recognition of the truth of what it is that we are. So this gathering, what we're doing right now, what I'm speaking, what we're co-creating and you're listening, and you're willing to participate with this in a committed way, we're actually creating a new paradigm than what was available in spirituality before. You're creating a new possibility, a design by creating an artificial organization of space and time with bringing forward more of our whole being to focus on manifesting this in our own awareness, in our own experience. This does. I mean, I've been doing this long enough. I know how powerful this can be. It's our ego, it's our habit of ourself that prevents us from recognizing that we're in a process of coming to truth rather than just the same old shit, all the other things that we were in the past, where we lose our access to that truth that we are by believing or getting overtaken by the habit of our past false truths, but not aligned with the purpose of existence. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to read from the manual. Now, many of you who have done multiple silent retreats have heard this before. It is not going to be the material that's new. The opportunity is for you to hear it newly.
You're reading today.
I'm going to have Satchamayi read it.
Oh, you're having me.
You're my
You
voice.
said I'm reading. Okay.
Yes. You might as well be me. So.
Okay.
And in this, I'd like you to just receive it and to let it just kind of come into you, and recognizing that what this is pointing to is a structure that now actually has some power, just like a mantra that's been around for 100 years has some power that is beginning to set in motion alignment of an intent among us in an articulate mental way that can include the person of us in the recognition of the facts of what it is that we're doing and what's happening here. Okay. All right. So, Satchamayi.
Okay. So, retreat manual. This 4-day silent retreat is not only a retreat from the world of demand, distraction, and responsibilities, it is also a retreat from the habit of our egoic self in order to more firmly establish our divine nature. To create value for yourself, a silent retreat requires a commitment on your part to follow the structure and to surrender yourself to the program. It is an opportunity to go more deeply inward and to relinquish, to let go in ways you have not yet done. It is an opportunity to shed the habit of your ego and enter deeply into that field of being that lives you, your eternal self.
So actually, every moment, starting from this now to all subsequent nows, is a choosing. It's a choosing to make that whatever rises up during the sitting or after the sitting to be an opportunity for you to re-choose what you're attending to and how you're holding it. It is literally creating a new paradigm, a new way of holding your ordinary life. It's shifting from the perspective where it's my life to that is a life arising within the space of me. So it's this ability to go, and when you're going to the refrigerator, or when you're going preparing your lunch, to be holding the paradigm of preparing the lunch or preparing the dinner. There is this process by which all this has to happen for you to have food to eat or drink to drink. And in that frame, be in touch with the paradigm that this is rising up in the field of what we're creating right now. By choosing that, you are able to be in a state of what I call remembrance, which will bring you to here now. Here now without trying to get this done so that can happen, or that done in order that can happen, or to avoid that happening, so on and so forth, into letting the automatic life occur and be aware of it arising in the space of that which you are. That's the opportunity, because you're living in your home now. Now this has advantages and disadvantages. because home or wherever you are, if it is yours, it's going to be where your vibration, the habit of your ego has been operating and acting out for some time, maybe years, maybe many years. And you're going to be surrounded perhaps by people who you have relationships with for years, many years. And that is going to be the field in which you're bringing this program into. So in this way, there's the advantages of it is that it's going to be material that will activate your system in ways that wouldn't if you were in a silent retreat at Lake Tahoe or somewhere in Sweden or some other part of the world, because it's your home. It's where you live. And where it is, there is the content of you that makes it your home. Every decision you had made, everything you did to fix it or to move the furniture, every time you go shopping and stock the refrigerator or the shelves, you are creating that paradigm. So this is an opportunity to start noticing the structure of how you've organized your life as an opportunity to experience it from a different paradigm than the habitual one. Each time you can recognize that opportunity, you empower this thing, this Sat principle, this reality creating principle that we are. You strengthen your ability to make this real, certainly during these next 4 days. So this is a conscious collaboration on your part. You're using your psychic intelligence. You're using your aspiration. You're using that part of you that's longing to be connected to a greater truth than currently accessible to strengthen your ability to shift the parts of you that does not yet know how to be in existence that way. Okay, let's continue.
Know the Sat. Silence and stillness are the qualities of the Sat, and also the means to attaining it. The purpose of this retreat is to introduce you to the Sat by sitting in this silence and stillness. The Sat is the unchanging, eternal reality that is the source of us and of all existence. During this 4-day retreat, the Sat will become more and more present. A force will be released and felt, consciously or unconsciously. This force is called Satchitananda, truth, consciousness, and bliss.
Okay, continue.
This force will put pressure on your system. This pressure may expand your awareness and cause spiritual experiences, or you may experience nothing. You may experience blocks, disturbing feelings, or thoughts, or not notice anything at all. This pressure is likely to push to the surface the obscurity, resistance, and barriers to the Sat and its force. These are like debris on the rising plume of an erupting volcano. If this happens, you will have to experience these experiences. Any or all of these can happen.
Okay, so we call the Sat force, when it comes into existence, it's Satchitananda. It is this current, this urge to be that comes from this primal condition to know itself in existence. So there is this paradigm where there is that which is prior to existence and there is existence itself. And that existence lies inherent in the non-existent seeking to exist. But they live together in the paradox prior to existence as we know it. It's the same as the paradox of us being a newborn baby in the mother's womb. We don't yet exist, but existing is starting to happen. Coming aware of our existence is the purpose of existence. It's the life force. It's the evolutionary principle that lives everything. Everything is action. Everything is vibration. Everything is movement. This entire creation is an endless movement of multiple layers of particles from the most subtle to the most gross. That this is going on continuously. We're living in a field of Satchitananda, where Sat is the highest and most subtle frequency with the greatest power coming from the origin, all the way down to consciousness, which is what Sat is in existence, is consciousness, Chit. And this pervades everything to various degrees of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And out of this descent it becomes Ananda. That means the experience of consciousness of existence. So this earth, this water, this fire, this air, this ether are all reflective of this descent into this particularized condition of existence, which has allowed us to wake up and become bodies. And everything that's living carries this same will to be. And it is in us. However, it's gotten very complicated because our system is extremely complicated. It has this huge capacity for experiencing consciousness and for experiencing what we call Ananda, which is experience itself of existence. It's the bliss of being. So we also have this huge memory, this huge mind, this huge capacity of consciousness that's given us our self-awareness. As if consciousness has tied itself into a knot, and the knot became ego, and ego's knot is no. So we're very much the organization of our individuality in form is the resistance to existence. And that is the core of what Satchitananda can begin to dissolve. The habit of us that keeps repeating every single moment of our conscious days, and then even when we're unconscious sleeping, perpetuating this no-ness, this resistance to existence, creating fear, creating shame, creating diminishment, creating veiling us from the truth of what existence is and the truth of what we are in that existence. Satchitananda is the force. And that force creates the tangle, inevitably, as it tried to manifest. Now, as a awakening, we start waking up from that tangle. We start unraveling ourselves from our contraction. We start learning how to exist without the no. Maybe with a not no or a yes. And we discover how to come out of that habitual egoic paradigm that we were born into and probably have lived for at least hundreds and hundreds of lives, and recover that essential truth that we are. And as we do so, as we crack open that shell of our ego, we begin to experience this current of Satchitananda. It comes to us first maybe through our awareness, as a sense of a possibility perhaps, or a glimpse of a greater possibility of existence, a glimpse of a light or an all-pervading quality of existence beyond ourselves that activates, begins to set in motion a catalytic process. An awakening is a touch that sets in motion a process that's inherent in the very design of our DNA, inherent in the very organization of matter. And it starts awakening from the inside out, not as we're used to normally from the outside in, although to some degree that can happen. But the current itself is an inside out process. And then what that does, it is like a new birth. It's like we're coming into existence out of the obscurity and darkness of our smallness into the miracle of our vastness. That current can be felt. You can have a sense of it. When it comes into the body, it has a particular quality that can be experienced. It will quiet our thoughts. Instead of thoughts being so ferociously grabbing us, taking us this way and that way, planning in the future, getting caught up in the negative structures, or even wantings and desirings, that whole paradigm starts quieting. And then we notice that the heart starts opening. We start experiencing existence from a new paradigm than our mind. We start feeling life. We start sensing an expansion that's occurring in our capacity to include the emotional felt life. And all the old constructions and contractions and the strategies for survival also start losing their grip on us. They start falling away. We become emptier. We become less driven to action. We learn to truly relax in ways. And that's the third way is the body begins to relax. It's as if the body knows it's being held. It is a sense of, in the body level, of relaxation. And that, all those quieting of the mind, opening of the heart, the stilling of the vital, and the relaxation of the body are evidence that the Sat force is at work in your system. That's why I put so much emphasis on paying attention to your body in this process. Because your mind is going to use its history or its projections into the future to define what's happening. Your emotional nature will be too caught up in the experience to know or recognize what's going on. It'll just be whatever is being pushed forward through the emotional nature, through the relational nature. The drives will be seeking to claim or to own or to resist what's coming. So it's hard to know through these limited ways of knowing in our body. And our body is just simple, stupid. You know, it doesn't know anything. It knows it feels good and it knows it doesn't feel good. So it is that occupying principle of truth that allows for us to know we exist, our self-awareness, that can choose to collaborate with the process, being recognized that where you're going is the empty mind, the open heart, a relaxed body, and to be looking for that in the process of what is occurring. Okay.
Meet the void. There is a shadow side of ourselves, the void. This is a dimension of our nature that is the storehouse of all our avoids, our avoided experiences. In this retreat, you may begin to experience these avoided experiences. This is necessary. These may appear as a familiar negative mood, a depression, or a compulsive pattern of thinking that seems to swallow you. You may feel fearful, anxious, or judgmental, or you may feel irritated or angry. But be alert. These are not ordinary experiences. They are due to the pressure of the Sat that is trying to manifest itself in you.
You got to know that the ego believes ego is real. Ignorance believes ignorance is truth. That the nature of our ego is so convinced in its own reality, it can't even know it doesn't know. Thereby, it can't learn. But when we set in motion a transformational process, that quality of us as a knower, rather than the old knower, we create a new kind of knowing, a new kind of being, a new kind of feeling that can allow us to see or observe something is coming up that's disturbing, rather than be the disturbance. The Sat force will assist you in being able to recognize those parts of your know that you've not been able to come to authority or presence with. Those parts of yourself that you do not yet know or think you know, but actually you don't know fully. Those parts that are still hidden, no matter where you are on the journey, I assure you, they will be parts. No matter where you think you are, if there's something that thinks you're somewhere, then there is more to be discovered about what you have not yet awakened or allowed to come into existence. Because part of this is the know of ego. It's not just ours. It's shared by everybody around us. It's shared by the environment. It's shared by the collective consciousness. So it's really not our know, but it's the one that we've made ours. So it's perfectly fine that that know exists because it keeps in place the fabric of existence so that it can continue to fill the purpose. But darkness is part of that purpose. Winter is part of spring. It is a necessary component, but it's the part our ego doesn't want to be with, or it only wants to be with the part of darkness that is organized to be part of its identity. It doesn't know how to be happy. It doesn't know actually how to accept love or be lovable. It does not know how to come into existence. It needs something greater than itself. It needs to recognize that there's something greater than itself that's truer, that's more real. Then the ego will start collaborating. Then it'll become your partner. then it will want it. Because actually, the inherent design of the ego is for a kind of happiness that isn't dependent on everything outside of itself, but one that arises within itself, as if you become the treasure. You become what you have sought for all your lives. You become the fulfillment. This process of coming out of the contraction of our contracted no, resistance, shame, diminished quality, angry, rebellious, judgmental part of ourselves is a healing. In fact, by being able to allow it to be seen and recognized for what it is. The nature of avoided experiences is that you've shut off parts of yourself, fragments of your ego, your mother, your grandmother, your somewhere, fragments of yourself have been shut off. They're your orphaned parts of your multiple selves. You've not allowed them to come into existence. Your ego says, no, I don't want that. I don't want to know that. I'm pretending it's not there. I'm distracting myself so I don't have to pay attention to it. These are the cry of the fragments of ourself and our inherited selves that have not been permission to come into existence with us. So therefore, when these things, unwanted experience arise, see them as abandoned parts of yourself. See them as the lost child, the wounded girl, the wounded boy, the traumatized, overtaken consciousness. See them as fragments that do not yet know how to be in existence because you haven't given them permission to exist. So be the mother of your child, be the father of your child. That's the quality of consciousness that comes, and you become your own self-healing agency with every time these things come up. You don't necessarily welcome them, but you allow them. And you do it bit by bit. Some of these things are so dark, so painful, so difficult that they create too much stress on your system. Then you have to do it bit by bit. Allow it up, and they say, okay, enough, back in your room. Allow it up, back into your room. And you have to resource this greater sense of self, the current of Satchitananda that's available to you, the awareness that comes, the love that comes. And then dive back into those and start meeting, because they're all yours. You may think it was your mom or your uncle or your neighbor, but it lives in your resistance because you weren't able to let it go, or you weren't able to let it process itself out. The more conscious we are, the more we are aware of the reality we are, then the more quickly these parts of ourselves come into existence and release themselves. But as I say, this is the avoided domain, the domain nobody wants to go into. The domain certainly you don't want to go into. So when these start showing, it's like opening up a doorway to hell. It's like I say, shame is a doorway, because it starts opening up into a reserve of unexistence, non-existence that you've been unwittingly keeping in place. And in the process, you expand yourself out of your own little narrow paradigm of the ego trying to carve a little piece of life for itself. And you begin to open up into seeing and allowing more of life when you can meet this no, this avoided experience, saying yes to the no. Saying, okay, I give you permission to be. The more you are able to develop the skill to do this, the more quickly these things come up and release. And in this process, you begin to dissolve this pattern of keeping ourselves stuck into the no. We start breaking the habit of the egoic paradigm that is the foundation of our individuality now at this stage of your life. And it begins to allow for a healing that not only is occurring in the present moment, but goes down into your history and to the history before you were born and to your previous lineage that you've taken on this lifetime, and dissolving those unmet parts in existence. This is the role of an awakened person. The role of the awakened, the purpose of awakening is to heal itself, to heal those that the self is connected to, and to heal that piece of the world that you're a reflection of. So meeting the avoided experiences becomes the food that accelerates our own divinity. It is this transformational process. That's what it looks like. It's not just the bliss and the wonder and the peace and the fullness and the freedom that comes. That's the fruit of the labor. The labor is meeting the contraction, meeting the avoided, meeting that in you which is still habituated to no, to resistance based on fear or desire or want or manipulation or strategy, to allow existence to be as it is without you having an investment of how it shows up. So this is the real work. There is no other reason for your spiritual awakening. There is no other tradition that focuses more precisely on the source of the problem as the one we're speaking of here, that came essentially from an essential reality that was known prior to religion of this eternal path that the Bhagavad Gita points to. It is actually what happened to me spontaneously without any information. And it was a recognition of what was happening that came through the understanding and the wisdom of my teacher and the Gita that allowed me to be able to see, this is what's happening. Oh, this is what it means. And when I started doing this work to see how it was manifesting in the many different people that came to me. So this is our opportunity. Okay, let us continue.
Okay, be present. Being here now in the present moment has a power to shift our relationship with existence. It is a power that arises when we drop our habitual patterns of thinking and reacting and move into an immediate and direct relationship with what is arising without a story, judgment, or belief. Being present is how we develop presence. This quality is essential for penetrating into the remaining hidden structures and unexperienced experiences that make up the inner void we have spent our life avoiding.
So the present moment isn't just a state of waking consciousness. The present moment has different frequencies to the consciousness. Our waking consciousness is not the highest state. It's the one that we're used to in our self-aware awakened state, where our mind makes sense of the world outside of us through our senses. It is actually just a small, narrow zone. There is something about reality that's more available to human beings in their awakened state, but that is actually only an apparency, because this is what we're habituated to. If you were habituated to the dreaming state, which is the other state, then you would see reality in a much more fluid way than what the awakening consciousness sees. It would not be as bound by space and time, cause and effect. As you notice how dreams are, they come in fragments and they come and go and they show pieces and then other pieces. That's what it is. It is of a different paradigm of knowing and a different domain of knowing. And there is the sleeping state. Now, the real domain to discover, to be able to be present with, is the state of sleeping. Because what we call sleeping from the awakening consciousness is actually everything that's hidden in all of existence that we're still asleep to. And what allows us to penetrate into what we call sleeping consciousness is a quality of consciousness where consciousness has become stable in its recognition of its own existence. And it creates a state, a persistent state of being we call samadhi. And there's various capacities of samadhi, but definitely if we can be present in the sleeping state, then the quality of our consciousness in both dreaming and awake changes fundamentally, as if somebody turned up the light. So being in presence, being in the present moment, is a development of our capacity as consciousness to be. So I'm not talking about you bringing yourself to what my senses are telling you or what my thoughts are going on. That is a part of it, yes, and that's an entry point to dive into the deeper aspects of yourself. But there are different planes in consciousness, which this journey can begin to show you. As your consciousness, the light of your consciousness expands, becomes more dense, more stable, and more bright. So how to be present from the paradigm of when you come back to yourself after a meditation is this being the context for what's arising. Be the paradigm. Be the space in which, my body is functioning this way. I still got this emotional residue going on. And my mind is trying to organize, but I'm anxious because I can't think, or I can't speak, or I don't know what's next. Holding the context for that is being present. So it's a presence that doesn't have the same reference point as ego, at least not the ego as we know it. Another kind of ego that doesn't have a no, the I amness, the part of us that knows this, the isness, the part of us that is touch with its isness, its self is existing as that. That is the part that can be present, and that in every moment it's an unfolding of whatever it is the reality that's showing up at this moment. And it's this part of this paradigm holder, this context for the content holder is what we're creating as we speak now. And that's the purpose. It's not only the purpose of this program, it's the purpose of your whole damn life, if you've known it or not. It's the purpose of as you go forward out of this moment. It is the purpose of your very existence. So the context, the quality of holding and being the presence expands proportional as we break out of the paradigm of the contraction of ego. And that quality of I amness, or the experiencer and the knower, becomes empowered. And it starts developing an authority. It starts developing a quality of being able to be in existence, recognizing that existence is showing up in the field of you. It's a very empowering experience, even though it may not feel that way at first. And this is growing into authority. This greater authority is also growing into greater responsibility. That is, ability to respond, to know what is actually going on. And that's directly proportional to the state of our consciousness. But that authority is the thing we're looking to strengthen in ourselves so that we can see each moment as a fragment of all of existence occurring right now. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, be the cause. While in this retreat, try not to assign the cause of any unwanted or negative thought, experiences, or sensations that may arise to something outside yourself. Instead, look inward and seek to find the source of what is arising. Enter into whatever you are experiencing by being present with it in the state of presence. Being present is the same as being in the state of presence. The now is a timeless moment and carries inherent within it the thought itself. Each time you come to cause, the thought within you is revealed.
So what it is that you come to in presence is you pull out of the habit of the ego of assigning reality outside of its source, outside of yourself, assigning what's happening for you inside to whatever might have been the signal that activated that inside, or assigning what's happening inside to a past event and assigning that that is the cause, something that happened in the past, which you are the victim of, or you got overtaken of by. And that part of you that projects into the past or projects into the current circumstances or projects into an unknown future is the error, where we're looking outward to get information, to develop knowledge and strategies so we can survive, so we can succeed, so we can avoid diminishment, so we can keep enhancing our sense of existing sense of separate self. We pull back from that strategy and we start experiencing it within the container of our bodies. Because this universe only exists as you know it now because you have a body. The Bhagavad Gita says, the body is the field. It's the field in which everything arises that you can know, that you can experience. So the body actually is a simple, more direct, more immediate knower and experiencer of the present moment of any other means of knowing you have as a form. So when we're in the body and experiencing what's occurring in the present moment, we are shifting the very fabric of the substance of our physical body in the perception of that greater reality. If we're not in the body, we're the big, spacious, vast, free, calm, quiet self, you're not changing anything. When you come out of that state, the old body habit will overtake you, and it will determine how you perceive existence. That's not the purpose of awakening. The purpose of awakening is to take your transcendent awake awareness and to inhabit it in your body. So the body, when you start paying attention to it, in this form that we all are, in the very cells and in the nervous system, in the fabric and the substance of our physical body, is the habit of the error. It carries the avoided pieces, even if our consciousness isn't experiencing it. It's the source of all illness. It's the source of all suffering. It is the root of the error of our ego. So when we inhabit and embody, we begin to set in motion a complete new capacity of living, for being in physical existence. But does mean that we have to meet what's going on in our body from a new paradigm that isn't based on avoidance. Or no, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to experience this. To a willingness. Okay, this is what's happening. What do you need to know about what's happening in your body is very different than what you need to know about your psychological issues that have its impact on the body, but aren't directly related to the body. And often we have to work through our psychological issues to get to the place where we can actually experience what's going on in our body. Because these psychological structures of thinking, story making, repulsion, all projections, all of those things that occur in human ego, keep us out from being embodied. So coming to cause is to be that quality of being that you are, coming into existence and allowing and experiencing and recognizing what's coming up as it is, not for the purpose of understanding it, not for the purpose of fixing it, but as the space for it to come into existence as it is in that current moment. The more willing we're able to do this, the more we can train ourselves to be in the body, the more in the immediacy of any moment, we can dismantle the hold of the past and the projection into the future as it arises and pop up into a space of freedom and peace and relaxation without an agenda with what it is that's arising. You know, anticipation about the future, worrying about the future, the anxiety about tomorrow, Everybody's got this many parts. So this is what's in the collective consciousness. This could be met in your body as an experience. It is not something out there that you're powerless to change. It is something that you have the power to allow it to be as it is, but holding it from a different place than being caught up in it. This is one of the things that becomes the skillfulness of those who travel this path. The ability to dismantle the error that arises in any one moment of present, any one moment of now, meeting it for the few seconds or minutes that it may take, and then being free to be in the next now. So in this way, this program is a training. This is the training part of my work. There's the education part that informs you and educates you and lets you know that this kind of thing is possible. But this is actually where you start applying it here now over the course of these 4 days. Okay.
Listen to the body. It can help to put your attention on the part of your body that is being impacted by these experiences. Notice where the experience is felt in your body. It may be a sensation, pressure, discomfort, pain, or numbness. Whatever comes up, try not to judge it or push it away. Just be present with it without moving or making noise for as long as possible.
And this is when it's critical to be silent and still and simple. When these things are arising, it's not a good time to talk to someone. It's not a good time to move. It's important to be there when it's arising in this sense of the opportunity that this program is creating. That it is something that you want to attend to in that way. Give it its few moments. You don't need a lot of time. Often when it rises up and you become aware of it, it can begin to unravel from that moment and on. And in that, it is an effective moment of now. Effective because you're actually moving into relationship with those unmet parts of your avoided self. And it can deepen. You might find one layer, and then you find another layer, and then you find another layer if you stay with it, rather than being stuck in the first glimpse. Let it deepen. Let it sink in. Let it complete. Okay.
Pay attention. What sensations, thoughts, or feelings are you experiencing? Pay attention to them. Expand them. Let them fill your attention and be with them, experiencing yourself as the cause and not attributing your experience to something outside yourself, either from the past, the future, or now in the present situation. Do this without taking any action.
Yes, hold there. Not taking action. That's where you're gonna when the thing arises, that's when your ego is going to be in reaction. It's going to be taking its action, whatever that may be: avoidance, denial, projection, overwhelm, shame, diminishment, all that. The thing to do with it is you don't let the old story or habit of contraction overtake the moment. You choose the moment. You choose what's arising, not just passively, but as an intentionality to meet it like I'm there for this moment. That's the opportunity. Now, I know that for some of you, when these things revealing, the level of trauma or contraction or diminishment is so strong that you can't hold it without getting overtaken. In that case, recognize it's there and step back and resource and relax into the quality of your being that may be available to you. It could be as simple as remembering the chickens. It could be as simple as a sense of beauty or a quality of sound. Step out of it enough so that you have some distance, but knowing that it's there, but you're not quite ready for it or not fully ready for it in this moment. That's okay. It's okay not to be able to meet it when it first starts showing itself. But it starts defining the territory of your battlefield. It starts letting you know so that when it comes up again, you say, ha, there it is. And you'll have some greater authority because you've met it, you've seen it, and you've been able to recover yourself and not get overtaken by it. This is what empowers you. More than any other therapist, more than any other intellectual body of understanding. It is something that occurs with you, within your body, with the experience arising, as if you're the adult in the room. As if you're the loving, present, accepting, patient parent that you never had. That quality of you then becomes your authority. That becomes a loving and present principle. Because it is a fragment of yourself, or a fragment of someone you took on, or a fragment of the collective story you took on that hasn't been fully met, that hasn't been allowed in you to come into existence, to see its reality, to see how it's impacted you. Because when you see these things, their hold on all the other pieces, that piece of contraction that's kept all these other related pieces of yourself contracted as well, begin to open up simultaneously. That's why often when you're paying attention to your body and you notice a contraction in your diaphragm, that then you notice a pain in your hip. And when you notice the pain of your hip, you notice a contraction in your throat. There's this interrelatedness in the entire system that's reflective of interrelatedness to the entire psychological structure of our identity. So as we begin to dismantle these, we begin to pull the roots out of our egoic identity. We begin to separate, they lose their authority over time as we learn to move into relationship. And that is the true healing. Because it's one thing to know the thing, it's like cutting off the top of the weed, but the roots will bring up another weed. What you want to do is be able to dive into and meet the reed in its root, which will always come down to this doorway of shame or this doorway of avoided darkness that you didn't know how to be with before. So this learning to penetrate into those deeper parts of yourself can all be done within the body. And in the healing of the body, the issue may show up again, but it does not have the power. It loses its power to overtake you. It loses its power to determine what's real for you. And in the process, expand your ability to actually be with the reality. Okay.
The experience will begin to speak to you. It will tell you about itself. Keep listening until the sensations, experiences, or thoughts fade, disappear, or break through. This is the process of transformation. At first, this may be difficult, but as you succeed in integrating the force of the thought, it will become easier and easier.
All right. So I want to, go finish it.
Yeah.
Hang on on this part.
Okay. Why don't you read that?
Yeah. Okay. I'll read
I'll
that
let
part.
you finish that.
So consider that these are pieces of yourself that have not yet been heard. If you look at the nature of the pain and the sorrow and the separation from love and safety and security, it is a wounded child, a piece, a fragment that doesn't yet know how to be in existence. But as all children, when the parent pays attention to them, when they're allowed to be that way in existence enough, this is no longer determining what's possible for them. So you are looking to meet the pieces of your unmet self, not as fearsome, not as dangerous, not as evil, but as simply angry, hurt, wounded, diminished parts of ourselves that just need some time to be able to know of its own existence. And in the process, in the moment that happens, it completes. And there will be a direct experience of peace, love, presence, completion. And it'll be gone. It'll be disappeared. So it's There is actually no such thing as past. Past does not exist. The trauma, the anguish you went through as a child, all the events of your life, they only have existence because you bring them into existence in this now. So the part of you that brings them into this now is the unmet parts of yourself that's doing that, trying to resolve it one way or another, by denial, by resistance, by projection, by anger, by fear, by self-diminishment. Associated with that is accumulated unmet experiences. So what happens is there's this accumulation of trauma, accumulation of diminishment, accumulation of unwanted experiences where the possibility of your life was diminished or threatened. These are simply experiences that only continue to exist because the body is habituated to them, and our consciousness is identified with the body sensation and recreates the event that occurred with that experience that's in your body. So anguish, take anguish, for example. Anguish could be a moment as a child when you realized it is not a safe world, or that you don't know how to be. And that anguish then is stored as a contraction in your system. And that experience of anguish actually creates impacts in the nervous system, creates impact in the physical organization of the cells together to try to avoid being overtaken by such an experience. So it becomes a knot. And there's more knots, more no's. So the knot becomes bigger and more tangled. That is what keeps us experiencing anguish in different situations at different times of our lives, is this habit that is resisting experiencing the anguish. If you look at the nature of pain, it's the same thing. Resisting the pain makes the pain worse. Resisting the anguish makes the anguish worse. It is this learning how to shift, how to be in existence other than the one that we've been habituated to, which actually has its roots in the physical body. So when we begin to work on the body this way, we begin to dismantle the entire design of our body as it has been over the course of our life. And you'll see in your own experience when you're successful that the past begins to change as you change now. It's like it is a quality of consciousness that goes back and pervades the entire design of your current idea of self, separate self, and starts undoing the hold of the past over this present. And of course, over the projections into the future. And the quality of that is freedom. The quality of that is spaciousness. The quality of that is love, is joy, it's aliveness. So you can know directly that that is what's happening. Okay. All right, so here's some suggestions for listening to your body. And this is something we repeat again and again in every one of our, this is the applied work. You're not going to be able to do this during the entire retreat. You're only going to be doing this when you're stuck in your structure, when you're stuck in your story, when you're in your reactivity. Otherwise, more than likely, you're actually going to be merging into the field that we're co-creating, and you're not going to notice anything. And that's perfectly fine. This isn't about being alert, rigid, attentive to every little thing that arises. It is about actually creating a receptivity in your system, opening up and being relaxed and allowing for the transmission that will come. It's actually happening right now. The sense, the experience that's occurring to wherever you are, if you're hearing this or not, is actually what's being generated. You're being put into the field of the sod. And that is creating the transformation in itself. But you'll have moments during these 4 days. That's why we're doing it 4 days, because in 4 days, you're probably going to experience the entire cycle of guna, from tamas to rajas to sattva. So you're going to have good times, bad times, and then times you don't even know what the shit's going on. So this is perfectly acceptable. This is exactly what should happen. Everything that happens is actually exactly what should happen. So you can trust this process, no matter where you get stuck along the process, if you stay with it. It's important that you keep choosing to use this as an opportunity to come into relationship with existence in ways that you haven't been able to before. So it's inevitable that this field of thought will at some point push forward the very thing you never wanted to be with, or show you the structures that are keeping this idea of yourself, of separate self, your no, in place. And that is going to be where this set of instructions are helpful. So consciously withdraw your attention from outer circumstances. You can do this by closing your eyes or leaving them open, but not focusing on anything. So now that's the first step. You notice the disturbance. You notice what's going on. You pull away from attributing, because that's what it'll want to do. It'll want to project outward. It'll say the room's too hot or too stuffy, or there's too much noise, or there's some other tendency going on. The idea is pull away from the outer circumstances, from the sensory world, and pull yourself inward. Become aware of your body. Become aware of your breathing. It may help to consciously breathe. Become aware of the energy in your body. Become aware of any pressure, pain, or other sensation. Focus your attention on that and listen to what it's saying. You'll hear the voice of your abandoned self. You'll see a picture. You'll have a memory. You'll get a glimpse. They may not be articulate, depending upon what is the core of the structure. There will be mostly sensation or mood. And that is the speaking. That's body talk. Baby talk. Body talk is baby talk. It's miserable. It doesn't know why it's miserable. It's thrashing around. It is a bodily event. So you're learning to listen as if it's a separate person, as if it's a piece of you within all of you, because we are all a collective of multiple selves. But there is one central you, that central self, that psychic being, a Jivatman. That's the one that can choose to be there, attending to it.
You want to open it up?
Hmm?
You want to open it up for some questions?
Just let me sit a minute. No, I feel that much goes on here is not served right now with questions. As a matter of fact, if you have a question other than a practical question, which you can handle by writing newdharma@gmail.com, you probably have the answer. There can't be a question if there isn't already inherently an answer. So be willing to receive the answer over the course of this program. Notice the quality of what may be there that still would be questioning. Try to find that itself within yourself. There really isn't any Shree. There's only you. That's all there is, ever. You're the individual expression of the same Supreme Being I'm an individual expression of. Trust yourself. Whatever comes to you is perfect for where you are. You can relax in that truth. That's what I'm trying to point to. You already know. There's nothing yet needed to be known. You're full and complete. You're the whole thing. You're the fulfillment. You're also all the misery and the suffering and selfishness and consequences of you being a separate self for as long as you've had them. But you're also this greater thing. So we're going to spend the last 20 minutes practicing silent sitting. And some of you are simply going to be there. You're going to be what that means for you for these next 20 minutes. And let this be your launch into the rest of these days. The silence begins now. And one thing you should know about the silence is you can be inward silent and speaking. So because you're in circumstances where there's people, where you may not have control over what needs to be done, then the principle here is that even though you're speaking, you're in silence. I call it conditional silence. That means you only speak when it's absolutely necessary. You only speak when you're handling some practical part of your life where speaking is required. You're avoiding all other forms of speaking. You're not answering emails, by the way, unless they're from New Dharma. Yeah, you do have to answer emails from New Dharma. But all
Or
other
WhatsApp
you
messages.
can let people know you're pretty much not available. It's okay. They can get along while you're gone for 4 days. You can let them know you're not going to be around until later on Sunday. Or is it Monday? Sunday.
Sunday.
And then get some hold this space. Avoid the inclination to distraction. All right. Let us begin. Now be aware of your body while we enter into this. Notice where your feet are, where your hips are, where your legs are, where your torso is, just be inwardly aware of your body. Just touch bases with it. Breathe consciously. Sense into what's going on in your body. The sensation, the energy, the vibration, the pressure, the relaxation or the contraction. Breathe. Be with this here now.